So I've definitely had periods in my life where I've been pretty bad with money, and I've had stretches in my life where I've tried to get a lot better with money. And I think even now I'm doing a pretty good job, but I'm far from perfect. I'm not really a super naturally frugal person. Like, I'm not a huge spender either. There are some things I've never really cared about, like clothes. This is like 15 year yeah, Adidas is gone, but it's like 15 years old and it's fine and it still works. So stuff like that I've never really cared that much about. But there are other things that I have spent a lot more freely on, like travel and experiences. So I've definitely had seasons in my life where I have been a lot more cautious and keeping my spending in check and really carefully budgeting. And for the last 7, 8 ish years now, I have been tracking every cent that I spend. So I think for pretty much most of my 30s now, I've been pretty cautious about my spending and making sure that I'm staying within a budget. My 20s were a little bit more all over the place. And this actually came up in a video that I made about kind of this period in my 20s where I was lower income, or periods in my 20s where I was lower income, because I was a student and then I worked for a while and then I went back to being a student and then I went back to working. So I had periods in my 20s where I was making like nothing. And then I had stretches where I was making a little bit more, but I was a brand new teacher. And so even like my first job working overseas, I made like, I think $20,000 a year. I'd have to go back and check if I could find it, but that sounds about right. I think it was about 20K a year. And in all of those years, some of which were lower income, some of which were slightly higher income, but none were particularly high earning years, I definitely also had periods where I was a lot more cautious with my money and keeping to a pretty classic university student budget. And then when I started working, like I did start spending a lot more freely, and I kind of was YOLOing and just like traveling and stuff like that, because I'd never had an opportunity to do those things before. But I have to say, in all of these different seasons of life, something that is really just hitting home so much in these last couple years is that nothing feels better than having money in the bank. Like, nothing. It's such an unfamiliar feeling in some ways. And honestly, sometimes I have to take a second and stop and like pinch myself, because I have these moments where I really like fall back into this scarcity mindset where I feel like I never have enough and I don't have enough. And now when things happen, sometimes I have to remind myself, like, you're okay. You're going to be okay. Like, you have a good job and you have savings and you've planned for this and you budget carefully so that when these things happen, it's not the end of the world. And I feel like my brain is finally starting to get that, because for a long time I was still really like just like money just felt really scary. I really felt like I never would have enough. And so I would sometimes have meltdowns about things that were like not really important. And I remember having this realization last fall. I went to the beach to meet a friend and I just had an ADHD moment. Like, that was truly all it was. I remember I got there before him and I got out of my car and I had my dog with me. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, now you have to walk to the parking machine to get a ticket to like pay for parking. And I had that thought in my head. But then as soon as we got out of the car, like, she was so happy to be at the beach. We got totally distracted and I just completely forgot to pay for parking. And then my buddy arrived and we went and had a picnic and hung out for a few hours. And so it just completely slipped my mind. And I got back to the car and I had a $75 parking ticket, which still feels kind of extreme to me. But I remember getting that ticket and I was like really mad at myself in the moment. And then I was just like, you know what? This doesn't matter. Like, this is what you've been working for the last decade, is for stuff like this to not really matter anymore. And of course, like, yes, I think when you care about money, you can get into a mindset where you're like trying to optimize every little thing and trying to save every, $5 here and $2 here. And there is definitely a season of life where that is 100% appropriate and necessary. But I have been working so hard in these last 10 years to finally get to a place where I have this cushion and where I've really worked on growing my career. Like that has been a huge focus, is how to increase my income and making more over the course of the last decade. And in that time, I have more than doubled my income. And I also have paired that with, like budgeting and tracking my spending and making sure that I'm saving as much as I can. And it's for these exact moments so that when I get a $75 ticket, it can just be a minor annoyance. It can just be like, oh, are you kidding me? Or I can just laugh about it and be like, the ADHD tax, but it doesn't feel catastrophic anymore. And there were definitely stretches in my life where like a $75 ticket would have felt catastrophic for sure. And I think I'm really hard on myself sometimes because mistakes like that, I really come down hard on myself and I'm super critical with myself. And I'm like, Kate, how could you have not realized that? It's just like, I don't know. Cause like, shit happens. That's what you're doing all this saving for. That's why you planned. That's why you've been working so hard. In the grand scheme of things, is this something that I'm going to worry about or think about a year from now? Like, no. And I'm so lucky and fortunate to be in a situation where I have been able to grow my income. And so I just feel so lucky to be in this situation that it feels like such a waste to not appreciate it a little bit more and appreciate the freedom and peace that it has given me. Because what is money for otherwise? Like that's really what I'm realizing at this point now that I'm finally in a place where I'm a little bit more stable. It's just like money to me now is a means to like share and connect and take care of others and treat friends and treat family and make sure my loved ones are cared for and to spoil my dog. And then also to make sure that I feel safe. It gives me safety and security now. And that is like a huge gift. That's the biggest gift. I can't imagine anything better. And so, yeah, there is just really nothing better than having money in the bank. It's so worth the sacrifice. It's so worth temporarily sacrificing or just being a little bit more frugal than maybe you'd like, spending within your means, getting a budgeting spreadsheet, using YNAB or some other budgeting app, figuring out how to make more money if you can. Like, I agree. I also like really hate hustle culture and I don't think we should have to work second and third jobs. But if there's like small things you can do that you enjoy anyway, like if you can get on Rover and walk dogs a handful of times a month, it doesn't even have to be anything crazy, but that gets you an extra $100 or $200 a month. And that is going to be the difference between like having nothing left over at the end of the month or going into debt, and the difference between being able to save a little or like pay off a little bit of debt. It's worth it to do it in the short term. You don't have to do that forever. You can work on kind of like longer term plans as well, of like how can you maybe get like a little raise. Is there a way you can make an extra dollar an hour at your job and things like that? But those things can take time, right? Side hustles are nice because like they're often things that you can do like right now. And honestly, if you think of it as a temporary thing of just something that like, okay, I'm going to do this for like 6 months, I'm going to lock in just to make sure I have like a little cushion in the bank, just to like pay off a little bit of extra debt. I think it's super worth it because honestly, life is going to keep on lifing. Shit is going to keep happening. Things are going to keep going wrong. That's life. Like I drive an 11-year-old car and stuff is going to happen. Stuff is going to go wrong, and stuff is going to go wrong like in my apartment. And my dog is probably gonna need to go to the vet at some point. Like it feels life is just can feel relentless a lot of the time. It can feel so relentless, and having a little bit of savings, having a little bit of cushion, just having a little bit in the bank, even if it's like $500. Wow, it's like I feel like then finally there's this moment where you can like breathe again. And when you don't have that, I don't even know if we know how stressed we are all the time. Like I think I've known in those moments like, dude, you should be stressed. And I've like kind of known it, but like I don't think I really even realized how damaging that was to be like living so on the edge where I'm just like, oh, if like a $200 emergency happens, like I don't know what I'm gonna, or well, I'll put it on a credit card, I guess, because like I don't have that money. And trust me, I know 100% that not everyone can save. I know that all our situations are not created equal. I trust me. I know. I'm not saying that this is like as possible for everyone, but just if you are in a position where you can put anything aside, where you can decrease your spending a little bit, where you can pare back, where you can do something that maybe you don't hate, whether that's, Rover or doing things online, like finding an online side gig, that can just be the thing of being like, okay, this is like an extra $100 a month. And like, this is like a few hours of my time. Like, I can swing that. I don't know, doing that to get yourself to a place where you just have that cushion because you deserve it. Like we all deserve that. And unfortunately, our society is not set up for people to have like that safety net provided to us. So we kind of have to provide it for ourselves, which is terrible. But yeah, wow, it's just really made me realize how far I've come in these last 10 plus years, how far I've come in my career and my earning and my income and my savings, and just how far I've come in, my spending journey, how much my attitude towards spending has changed. And now I really see saving as like such a gift and a privilege. I don't see it as deprivation anymore. I see it as a gift that I'm giving to myself, because really there is nothing that is going to give you more safety and more security and more peace than having money in the bank. Let me know your thoughts down below, and I will see you on the next one.